You read the newspapers, you listen to the radio, you watch the television. And all the time, scientists and researchers are claiming this, that, and the other. But how do we actually establish or try and fight our way through the clutter of scientific evidence to find out what is more than just debatable and which may be utter untruths and what may be fact? I'm here with Ben Goldacre, a respected writer and broadcaster specialising in the reporting of science, to discuss the not so easy and very complex relationship between science and the media. Ben, welcome. Perusing the media, we can see that exercise makes you fat, that coffee makes you see dead people, that Facebook causes cancer. The list is endless. What are we, the public, to make of these apparently scientific facts?
I think the most important thing to be aware of is that you can't trust scientific and health information that you get in newspapers, and I think that's actually the only sensible blanket response to have to the problem of how bad science and health coverage in mainstream news media can be. I think unfortunately newspapers have a very different set of motivations and commercial imperatives to what we might wrongly attribute to them. They're interested in sensation, they're interested in extreme stories. And if you want good quality information, you have to go elsewhere. But I think the beauty is that there are so many alternative sources available right now. And in many cases, it's just a matter of harnessing those. So, for example, NHS Choices now gets millions of visits a week. And that's really good, straightforward information. It's not eye-catching and exciting, but people who are interested in sort of, good quality information about health problems can go there.
Okay.
If you look at the huge amount of material that press offices in universities put out, for example, that's actually a very good source of science news, and it carries its own risks. Press offices may feel disinclined to flag up some of the shortcomings in their press releases when they describe a study conducted in their institution, but at least you're aware of that bias, and at least it's also another source of good quality, and also sometimes I think much more kind of challenging and informative information, because alongside the problem of people just being wrong in popular media, there's also the problem of there not being very much science, or what there is being dumbed down. And I think it's really great that you don't need to have a big broadcaster in Alexandra Palace anymore to get your message out. You don't need a printing press. You can do it yourself. And I think that organisations should be much more thoughtful about harnessing the resources they have available, making press releases really easily publicly available right on the front page, but also about encouraging their academics, for example, not compelling them, but encouraging them if they want, facilitating them, lending them this camera, to go out and just talk for 5 minutes about the work that they're doing, which is, as often as not, publicly funded after all. To recognise people's direct, unmediated public engagement in the RAE. Don't just recognise people who manage to get a dumbed-down TV show on the go. Recognise people who write a blog, because a blog that's read by 500 people who are quite interested in astrophysics and did something related to it at university 20 years ago, but now work in middle management at Marks and Spencer's, that blog is really important to those people. And thousands of those blogs equals one TV show. And it's very easy to get thousands of blogs like that on the go.
Social media, the internet, blogging, it's all a major part of our information intake nowadays, with communities interacting and commenting on various issues, including what they've read about science. Do you think that social media, new media, digital media, call it what you will, do you think this is a good or a bad thing for the establishment or recognition or debate of scientific facts or evidence?
My head sort of goes a bit too much when people talk in new media terminology, but yeah, I think people just getting on and doing stuff on the web and talking straight to people is a really good idea.
Okay, but looking at things like academic journals, then obviously if you can get your work into a big academic journal, then it's more likely to be seen by the media, and often industry-funded studies are the ones that are making into academic media, academic journals. How much a factor do you think money is playing in the reporting of scientific fact?
I don't think that it's necessarily the big journals that have an easy time getting into newspapers. I agree that that's certainly a factor, but I think what often drives what appears in newspapers is who makes it easy for the journalists. Because journalists these days are filling many more pages with far fewer staff. And so anybody who gives them a press release that's quick and dirty and easy, that they can copy and paste into eye-catching newspaper copy, that person will always win every time. Now, academics may be a bit reluctant to do that, but the Prostate Cancer Society, or whatever they're called, will be very happy to put out a very, very eye-catching, perhaps even quite over-dramatised account of a study's findings. And so what you tend to find is that the stories that get into the newspapers are the ones that have got good, ambitious, and sometimes PR that's not shy to make an eye-catching claim. Anyone can do that. Money is undoubtedly an issue, but anyone can do that, and you can see that from the anti-vaccination campaigners who have been absolutely brilliant at getting media coverage. I mean, I salute them as campaigners. They have done astonishingly well. They have a coterie of journalists on mainstream, broadsheet and tabloid newspapers who hang on their every single word. They get TV documentaries, docudramas. They have been incredibly powerful. And I'm sure it was on a shoestring budget just because the message that they were selling was so attractive, and they made it very easy for journalists.
Okay. But looking at things like global warming and the swine flu issue at the moment, there seems to be an immense amount of money being put into lobbying. Okay, you can do it on a shoestring budget, if you're very clever. But where do you think there is a major problem with lobbying of people like pharmaceutical companies or oil companies in actually extending and manipulating data straight forward for their own advantage? How does the average person equip themselves, arm themselves to fight through this clutter and try and establish what is reasonable or what is still very much under debate?
To me, it's more about, it's really important that people come to learn and understand about the basics of evidence-based medicine, which is, after all, the single biggest and most important, I would say, new applied science of the past 50 years. I mean, evidence-based medicine, the details of how we know if something is good for you or bad for you, has saved millions and millions of lives. I mean, ideas like systematic review, meta-analysis, case control studies, stratification. I mean, this is bread and butter, basic stuff. These are the most important ideas. They've saved millions of lives, and yet they're not taught in schools. Newspaper media coverage happens as if it didn't exist. And I think that's a real tragedy. And I'm kind of more excited about telling people about that nerdy stuff than I am about saying, well, here's how to really eat well.
Absolutely, yes, I see your point. Well, Ben, thank you very much for joining us this evening, and enjoy the rest of your evening at Darwin.
Cheers.